Okay, fuckers and fuckheads. I watched Obama give his campaign speech last night, and yeah, that's what I'm gonna call it, because he wasn't giving any jobs creation speech. He was doing his usual fucking campaign ass bullshit. You know, he's talking about he's gonna create a bunch of jobs. Well, if you look at the nature of those jobs, aside from the teaching positions, which that's only a couple of thousand jobs, 2,000 tops. None of them were permanent. I mean, okay, first off, road construction, start using them gas taxes and start using them tire taxes and start using them SUV taxes for what they were intended for, and we'd already have road construction going on. But, Obama's not realizing that, we're already over 14 trillion, pushing towards 15 trillion dollars in debt. He wants to spend another 450 billion. Now that's a $500 billion. We've got this super Congress, whatever the fuck, trying to find 1.5 trillion dollars to cut from the federal budget over several years. Several years doesn't cut it. First off, where's this money going to come from? Where is this $450 billion, $500 billion, going to come from, Mr. Obama? Let's see, tax the rich? No, that's not such a good idea, because the American dream is not do well and support the government. The American dream is do well and enjoy the fruits of your labors, not fucking support a government that's out of control. And basically, if you brought back the pre-Reagan era tax cuts, now those tax cuts, if you brought back the pre-Reagan era taxes, you're going to have people turning down promotions. You're going to have people that are not opening up extra franchises because they don't want to be in the next tax bracket. 50% tax bracket was at what, 100,000 back then, and I heard 110,000 recently within the past 24 hours for the 50% bracket. And 70% tax bracket over $1 million a year? No. Nobody needs to be paying those 70%. Right now, the current federal maximum is 38.5%. But if you look at what people really pay, if you look at just mine, I'm not even in either one of those tax brackets. I'm down in the cheap seats. I make $42,000 a year, but by the time I pay my property taxes, my state taxes, and my federal taxes, 68.4% of my income is gone. And I am not alone in that picture. There's a lot of people like me. Basically, I'm, $42,000 a year income. I get to live off of roughly $15,000, a little bit less. That shit ain't right. I don't like supporting the government. That's way over half my fucking income. Now you got the guy that's making $100,000 a year. Well, you remember people growing up when I did, and even people in their 30s, everybody knows somebody that, man, you know what, I'm going to turn that promotion down because that'll put me in the next tax bracket and I'll actually be making less money. See, that shit will happen. Because they don't want to support the government. They want to support themselves as Americans. And, you tax somebody 70%, I don't care if they're making $10 million a year. No. They should not have to pay more percentage-wise than any other American. Right now, you've got 43% of the American population does not pay taxes at all. First off, get rid of that earned income credit. You've got people that are not paying taxes at all that are getting $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 back from the federal government. Okay, there's some federal spending we can cut out right there. Granted, I believe that those people that are making $20,000 a year, they don't need to pay no taxes because, on what I got left after I pay my taxes, $15,000 a year is barely enough to eat on. I'm kind of considering coffee a luxury item. You know, gas money is a thing that I might have. And it's not a matter of, you know, I'm going to come out of retirement. I put in 22 years on one job. I worked, I saved my pennies. And pretty much most days I can't even ride my motorcycle down to the end of the street, but I still sit here and work on motorcycles on the rest of the time. And I ain't making no money at it. Fuck, if somebody brings one over, mostly I'm working on my own shit, but if somebody brings one over, I just make them buy the parts, and if they kick me some cash or a gun or a little weed, you know, hey, great, I'm good with it. Yeah, I'm not really fucking, I don't care, you know, you fucking come here and drink you know, bring a 6-pack of soda, the parts for your bike, and smoke a fat one with me. Hell, I'll sit there and help you work on it. I'd rather show you how to work on it than do it for you, but sometimes I'll do it for you, sometimes I'll just show you how to do it. It just depends on the person and their abilities. You know, I don't really charge anyone, but that's just me. But you got these people, you know, working at McDonald's that would love to be hanging sheetrock or would love to be working the fruit harvest. Here's a way to create jobs, Mr. Obama. See all them illegal aliens that you just gave a free pass via executive order? Pull that executive order down and let's modify it a little bit. How about we modify it to automatically, if they get caught illegally in the U.S. a second time, they get 5 years in prison, just like an American would get if we got caught illegally in Mexico. Guess what? You'd only have to put 20 or 30 of them in prison, make an example out of them. The rest of them would run the fuck back across that border. You know, let them have a free pass the first time they get caught, you know, put them straight on a bus right the fuck back over there. Now, I've read anywhere from 30 to 38 million illegal aliens in this country. Now, getting them out of here, and, you know, before people go jumping on me saying that I'm racist or something, I have zero problem with the people who come to this country legally. The ones that are here illegally, well, illegal, in my mind, says criminal, because it's illegal. They're doing something illegal. They're a fucking criminal. Period. It's cut and dry. So if they're here legally, I don't have a problem. But the illegals, I've read anywhere from 30 to 38 million of them are here in our country. You know, they're burning the American flag. They're flying the Mexican flag above the American flag. Americans don't like that shit. None of us do. But let's say 1 out of 3 of those is working. And let's go with the lower number of 30 million. That's 10 million job openings for Americans right there. Now, granted, the bulk of those jobs are pretty shitty. Working the fruit harvest. I know one kid here at McDonald's, works right here at McDonald's up here on 41 in Venice, up there by Shamrock and 41, that McDonald's there, that kid works there. He would love to be hanging sheetrock, but the Mexicans done took that over down here. And they'll do it for $10 an hour, which he would love to be making. Because he's got a wife and a kid to support, but he has to work at McDonald's right now because, you know, the Mexicans basically put his boss man out of business. They're going in there and hanging sheetrock for $10 an hour versus, oh shit, he was making $15-16 an hour. He'd gladly take that $10 an hour, but, you know, the Mexican crews ain't hiring nobody white. They get away with that racism shit, whereas, you know, normal folks can't. Yeah, I'm all for affirmative action, but, you know, hey, granted, these Mexicans, they are some working motherfuckers. I've worked alongside many of them, and I had a hard time keeping up with them when I did. But I was one of the few that did keep up. I just, you know, I'm too old to be doing that shit now. But you send them across the border, there's at least 8 million, if not 10 million job openings right there. Now, how does that helps America in a lot of other ways too, because then there's fewer Mexicans in our schools sucking up our tax dollars, taking away a decent education from American citizens. I would say don't cut the schools' budgets. Let's give the American people a decent education. All that road use tax, you got Mexicans drawing welfare and food stamps, SSI, and they haven't even paid in a goddamn thing. Fuck that shit. They're here illegally. The ones that are here legally that have contributed to the system, give them the same thing as any American would qualify for. The ones that are here illegally, don't give them a goddamn thing but a one-way ticket back across that fucking border. And force them to use it. Like I say, I don't have any problem with somebody who comes here legally and they're participating. Now, there's other things too. We're giving all these illegal aliens free medical care. Well, let's say, just on the welfare, that's, I'm not going to say all 30 million of them are on welfare because I know better. Probably 8 to 10 million. And those don't need to be sucking our tax dollars. Figure even if it's just $1,000 a month in total between SSI, food stamps, and welfare. Figure, hell, if it was 10 million of them at $1,000 a month, there you go. There's $10 billion every month you can save there, right out of the government's budget. I heard nothing in last night's speech about creating real lasting jobs. I heard about road construction. I heard about rebuilding the schools. At best, those are a couple of year jobs. That's not something somebody can retire from. And it's really expanding the government is all it's doing, because it's putting more people under the government's payroll. And the government, where's this $450 billion, that's a $500 billion roughly, going to come from? Y'all already having a hard time trying to cut $1.5 trillion from the budget, which really, truly still does not bring the government back into a state of fiscal responsibility. I mean, they'll still be operating more. They'll be spending more than they're bringing in. Now, don't penalize the rich because the government's too stupid to manage their money. Don't penalize anyone because the government's too stupid to manage their money. And that's the problem with these Democrats, is their first words out of their mouth is, let's go on ahead and tax the rich. Let's go on ahead and, oh yeah, we need to cut the budget. We need to cut the deficit. And then the first words following out of their mouth is, let's spend more money. And let's tax the rich to pay for it. Well, you know what? All right, let's take the guy that's making $110,000 a year. Because I know a lot of guys that are doing this to where they're not even doing business taxes. Yeah, they've got a business license, but they might, they're not going to hire an accountant or anything. They're hiring 2 or 3 guys and they're writing it off. And paying it on their personal taxes because they don't want to be taxed twice. That's small business. That's how it works here in the South. I don't know about up in Yankee country or how it works in Washington, D.C., but most people here in the South, they just do it on their personal taxes. The smaller businesses. And they might file some token items on the business account just to where they can keep their license or something, or if they're actually collecting sales taxes, they'll file what's necessary to push through and pay for what sales taxes they've collected or whatever. I mean, basic bare minimums. You got one example down here in Inglewood. Now, this guy does have a regular staff. He has a girl that does his accounting, and she's also his receptionist, and he's got 2 or 3 guys working for him. But when he hires somebody, he pays for their first set of, AC testers out of his pocket, because most of these kids that he's hiring can't afford to go out and spend $1,500 or $1,800 on a Freon recycling system, and a set of gauges. Most of them, they've got basic hand tools, but the tools that they need for a lot of their work, he pays for out of his own pocket. And granted, you know, the government was just trying to pass to where you can write off equipment. Well, you can't write off basic hand tools for the most part. Most tax accountants will just tell you, hey, look, don't even try. And where you can write off a new vehicle, you can't write off the vehicle that you're buying that's 4 and 5 years old. And if you look at most of the small businesses, like that one in particular, and hell, you can look at, there's a computer guy up here on 41 that's got 2 or 3 kids working for him. They're buying 2 and 3 and 4-year-old vehicles, and sometimes even 5-year-old vehicles, and just having them painted with their company logo on them. You can't write off the cost of the paint job unless you got a sign on there. And again, you know, most of the time the tax accountants say, hey, look, just don't even try. I know you think you can write it off as advertising, but man, if they audit you, you're screwed. Because you can write off that section, you know, the tax code is that picky to where you can write off that section where the logo is, but you can't write off the rest of the paint job. And, you know, but nobody's buying brand new vehicles for their normal small business. Because the minute you drive, if I go buy a brand new truck today, right now, and I drive it off the lot, I've owned it for less than 10 minutes, it's been off the lot, it's worth half, roughly. They lose value when you drive them off the lot. Whereas you buy a 2-year-old vehicle, it's still worth the same as what you paid for it, you know, a couple months later, several months later even. Buy the right one, hell, it'll go up in value. But, you know, and we don't need huge government like this EPA shit. Oh, fuck. I mean, you know, Obama was up there the other day trying to get the automakers to exceed 60 miles to the gallon, and the automakers were whining about it. You know what? I almost have to take the EPA side on that, but at the same time, it's the EPA that fucked up the auto industry anyway. Because there's only so much you can do with a gasoline engine efficiency-wise. And for some reason, you can't make an American vehicle with a diesel unless it's a 3/4 ton truck or bigger. Yet you can breathe diesel exhaust, and a turbo diesel doesn't smoke like a regular diesel does. You might get a little puff every now and then, but that soot settles right away. Simple as that. And if you go into your garage and you've got the doors closed, you can run that motherfucker all day long. It will run out of oxygen and die before you do, and the worst you're going to get is a really bad headache. Fuck, I've been right next to a big-ass cat, you know, Cat 917s in a shop, fucking had them running half the goddamn day, doors closed, middle of winter. You know, no fucking pipes going out. The worst I got was a goddamn headache, whereas with a gas engine, I'd have been dead if it was a little goddamn 4-cylinder car. Yeah, and the EPA's, yeah, I had an 83 Volkswagen Rabbit off the showroom floor. I had a 79, same thing, off the showroom floor. Them things got 70 miles to the gallon. They were diesels. I had an 87 Olds Cutlass Sierra, and granted, General Motors never made a decent automotive diesel for a lot of years. The aluminum heads on that thing cracked twice, which I didn't care. I replaced them for iron heads, and they worked fine after that. And I put on turbos. I was getting 60 miles to the gallon, and that thing, that little Cutlass would light up both front tires and keep them lit for a good from this house to that stop sign down there. No goddamn problem. You know, plenty of power. So I mean, I wasn't even focusing on efficiency. I've built several one-ton trucks. There's on my MySpace, there's one, and there's one on my yearbook where I've dropped Dodge Cummins turbo diesels into Ford F-350s and gotten 30 miles to the gallon out of 1-ton dually diesel 4-wheel drives. And I've had my 1990 Ford E350 on an F450 frame. That sucker, I had a 7.3 diesel in it. Had a sleeper, it was an old ambulance, is where I got the cab, and that's the only part that was titled. But I had a sleeper on it because the ambulance body was wrecked, so I had a sleeper from a truck. I had a stainless steel flatbed, 1-inch thick stainless steel flatbed back there. I was using beer kegs for fuel tanks, 32-gallon kegs. I think the biggest I make now is 16 gallons. I don't know why, but I had a pair of 32-gallon beer kegs for fuel tanks. This son of a bitch, I had my toolboxes on it, and I was getting 35 miles to the gallon on the damn interstate. And on the around town, I was still getting 25, 28. And yeah, I actually kept track. Nothing but a Ford 7.3 turbo diesel. And guess what? With all that weight, fuck, imagine if I hadn't had that weight. Oh yeah, we don't have to imagine, because I also had a full-size 77 Lincoln that I dropped 7.3 diesel in. That sucker was getting 45 miles to the gallon. That's a full-size Lincoln town car. I mean, old school fucking 1977 boat. So I mean, the technology's there. It's just not in gas engines, because there's only so much you can do with a gas engine, and all this electronic crap does is just give you more shit to go wrong. That's the biggest problem with these newer vehicles. That's why a lot of people are buying older, simpler vehicles. The less that can go wrong, the less that will go wrong. And the EPA has gotten so huge and invaded industry so much that the industry can't progress. And that's just one example of government has overstepped its bounds. It's okay for the EPA to say, all right, you have to meet these emission standards. It's not okay for the EPA to say how they have to meet those standards. Simple as that. I mean, fuck. You look at the new Goldwing and all the emission shit on them. Anyway, let's get back on creating jobs. Well, that would create jobs if the EPA would step out of the automotive industry. Let's get back on creating jobs, real lasting jobs. Obama is all this pro-union, pro-union, pro-union. Well, those union wages and those union benefits, they cost companies money. The employees might go, oh, yeah, man, the union's good. I'm getting all kind of free shit. I can be a lazy motherfucker on the job. I don't have to do nothing but the job that I was hired to do. You know what? That hurts a company. You want to create jobs. Give people the right to work whether they're in the union or not. Period. And that way the boss man knows he can go out on that floor. Oh, there's a guy that's not union. I need this done over here. I can just ask him to do it. And he'll do it because it furthers the company and it keeps his job going. I asked one of them union motherfuckers, goddamn shit, I have to, go through all kind of hassle, and they ain't going to do it. Unions are for lazy people, freeloaders, scum, period. If you don't like the job that you're on, go get another one. It's that simple. That's your American right. All that union bullshit costs company money, puts companies under. Unions have put more than one company under. And another thing there, Mr. Obama, you want to create American jobs. How about like companies like Gibson? I've been reading for the past several days about how, what was it? It wasn't customs, because the shit cleared customs. They were buying wood for their fretboards. And they were told by the government that if they had bought those finished overseas, that the government wouldn't even be harassing them. But they bought some rare wood or something that every other guitar company in that area and in the U.S. is using that same wood from the same suppliers and not getting harassed over. But most of those other companies can't put that Made in America label on there. because they are having them finished overseas. But a lot of those other companies are not having them finished overseas, and they're finishing them here in America. So get those regulations out of there. If that shit clears customs, they've got a right to it, period. It's that simple. You know, and you want to really create American jobs instead of giving all these, like South Korea and all these trade agreements and shit. Well, that doesn't create American jobs. That creates jobs for them foreigners that are willing to do it for next to nothing. And, you know, that doesn't help America one bit. What helps America is creating American jobs. And creating American jobs doesn't mean creating some marketing genius's job that's going to sit there and market shit from overseas. Creating American jobs means keeping it here in America. So if South Korea wants to bring stuff in here at a reduced tax rate or no taxes, they better do the same for us. And that's not what I saw in any of these free trade agreements. In fact, they were pretty biased in favor of the other countries, not in favor of America or American jobs. And back on the taxes thing, well, let's say somebody is making over $1 million a year, and you put them in the 70% tax bracket. That ain't right. Nobody wants to pay 70% to a damn government. That's like saying, hey, look, man, if you do good enough, you're making $1 million a year, we're going to take it away from you, and we're going to give it to these welfare scum. Well, hey, cut the welfare scum out. Be a lot more people working. I mean, the biggest thing that you could do to create American jobs is free up some of the jobs that really are already here. There would not be 38 million illegal aliens in this country, or 30 million, whichever it is. I've read both numbers and several numbers in between. If there wasn't work, well, those companies that are hiring all those illegals and shit, well, take their illegals away. Let's get the Americans working. Because there's people at McDonald's that would love to be hanging sheetrock for $10 an hour versus $7 an hour minimum wage at fucking McDonald's, whatever minimum wage is these days. There's one kid that I know personally over there at Burger King that he used to work the fruit harvest, and he did pretty good at it. He's working at Burger King and just stayed because you can't make any money. Mexicans have come in and wrecked the fruit harvest. They'll go out there and work for $50 a day. Well, a livable wage for the average American is about $100 a day. You know, granted, that would jack the price of fruit and this and that, but if you look at these fruit companies, they're raking it in so goddamn big, they ain't doing nothing but being cheap hiring all them Mexicans. They can go back to hiring Americans. And if the prices on fruit gets jacked a little bit, big deal. It ain't like the prices on everything else ain't gone up. You know, and all this road construction, hey, we would have road construction anyway if the federal government was to take the gas tax, which is intended to repair the roads, and if the federal government would take the SUV tax, and if the government would take the tire taxes. All those were intended for the highway funds. Use them for what they were intended for, and we'd have road construction right now. But the thing that upset me the most last night, listening to Mr. Obama's campaign speech, that's all I considered it. That's all it was. It was just hype and fucking bullshit. The thing that bothered me the most is we're sitting here, we're trying to cut $1.5 trillion from the budget over a period of years, which, like I said, does not bring us to a fiscally responsible government. They'll still be spending more than they've got coming in. He was talking about taxing the rich. All right, let's change that up. Forget the earned income credit. If somebody's making $20,000 a year, yeah, granted, perfect. They don't need to pay no damn taxes. But we don't need to be handing them free money. all these illegal aliens that are making 7, 10, 15, 20,000 a year and got 3 and 4 kids and they're getting $2,000 and $3,000 earned income credit. They haven't paid no fucking taxes. They haven't paid no Social Security. That shit ain't right. Cut that shit out. That's several $billion you can save every year from the government's budget. You know, all these illegals on welfare and SSI and Medicaid or Medicare, whichever one that they're on, that's several billions that we can save from the federal government's budget. The thing that bothered me the most was, instead of saying, all right, look, we're going to back government out of business, you know, out of businesses' hair so businesses can progress. Instead, they said, we're going to spend another $450 billion on shit that has never worked in the past. We've already tried it. And we're going to be more irresponsible than we already are. I'm sorry, that don't make no sense to me. And taxing the rich, like I said before, that is not the American dream. The American dream is not to do well and have to support others. You know, the American dream is to do well and enjoy the fruits of your labor. You know, I work my ass off for what I get. You know, if it wasn't for property taxes, yeah, I'd get to keep a little bit over half my income, but instead, by the time I pay state, federal, and property taxes, 68.4% of my $42,000 a year income is gone. Yeah, you got these people working at McDonald's, getting food stamps. Fuck that. If they want to, they're obviously able to work because they are working. There goes that phone. Holler at you. Okay, I'm back. But anyway, like I was saying, these people on food stamps and shit, fuck that. You know, I can see the ones that cannot work getting them. But the kids that are working getting food stamps, you know what? If they want to eat, they need to find them a roommate, or they need to not buy that $300 pair of shoes. They need to not fucking buy cable or something and eat. That's what I had to do back in the day. That's what most of the people I know did back in the day. Now you got it to where, fuck, the government will give them a goddamn cell phone. You know, that's probably, that ain't right. Taxpayers don't need to be paying for that. And like I said, I saw nothing last night that would save the country money, the government. I saw nothing last night that would do anything other than create bigger government, because all the jobs he was talking about were basically government. If you're working road construction, that's government's paying for that. And we already have taxes that are supposed to be being used for that. We don't need to tax the rich for that. We just need to make the government accountable and more responsible for where the monies go. You know, it's just like they've robbed Social Security so many times. If a tax is created, which I do consider Social Security to be a tax, if a tax is created for a purpose, it needs to remain for that purpose only, not for everything else. You know, that all them tax dollars coming in to rebuild the roads every time you buy gas, that needs to be used for rebuilding the roads. So there's no way that Obama can sit there and say that that money ain't been there all along. What he needs to be saying is, we're not going to spend that money in the wrong places anymore. We're going to spend it in the right places. And, you know, but I heard nothing, not one word about anything permanent as far as jobs go. A couple thousand teaching positions nationwide, maybe. And those are all going to be union, you know, which I don't think is right. I think people should have a choice as to whether they want to be union or not. And that's just plain and simple. I heard nothing about how he was going to save the American taxpayer money. I heard how he wants to cost several taxpayers money. And I contacted a few of my friends. Nobody, well, at least out of the people that I know, as of 11 o'clock last night, nobody has seen this magical bill or act that he's talking about passing. And that includes a couple of Democrats, several Republicans. Nobody's seen it. Nobody's seen anything in writing. It was just a fucking happy, crappy speech is all it was. He wants to spend another $450 billion, which the American people really don't need to be paying. And that's the problem with the Socialist Party in general. I'm sorry, Democratic Party, but I pretty much think that they're socialists. I don't really believe that they're anything other than they want to turn us into a commie country. I've never met a Democrat yet that wasn't basically on the free ride, the government should pay for everything ticket. And the government, no, that's not your right as American. The only thing that you're entitled to as an American is what's guaranteed in the Constitution and Bill of Rights, and you're entitled to the right to go out and make your own fucking way. I had to make my own way. Most people have to make their own way. You know, if you're in college, pay off your student loans. We don't need to be giving grants to foreigners. We need to be spending money on Americans for Americans. And like I said close to the beginning there, we were to take those illegal aliens, because nobody likes prison, give them the same 5 years that an American would get if we were caught down in Mexico. I have no problem with the ones that come here legally. The illegals, give them a one-way ticket home the first time. If they get caught here a second time, give them 5 years in prison, the same as we would get if we got caught down in Mexico. And bingo, bango. You'd only have to put 20 or 30 of them in prison and make sure that the charge is stuck. And guess what? The rest of them would be running their ass across that border, even if it's only 30 million. Let's be conservative with the estimate. That's 8 million job openings that Americans could have. Even though, granted, the bulk of them are shitty jobs. They're jobs. People can make a living off that shit. You know, you don't need to be catering to people who are here illegally. In my mind, illegal is criminal. Illegal means you're breaking the law. You're a fucking criminal. That's what they are. They're criminals. Kick them the fuck back to their own country. If they get caught a second time, give them prison time. It wouldn't take but a few going to prison, and the rest of them would get the idea that they don't need to fucking be here unless they're willing to come here legally. And while I do agree with the one senator that I left a couple of comments on his Facebook last night, that we need to be attracting brighter minds into the U.S., I don't agree that we need to be paying for them to be here. We don't need to give them grants. If they can come here and they can pay for their education, great, beautiful, wonderful. If they're a doctor or some kind of a professional and they want to continue their education, great, beautiful. Let them pay for it. If you want to increase the mind pool in America, do it with Americans. If you're going to spend $250,000 giving someone a grant to open a business, do it with Americans. Actually, if they want to open a business, they need to fucking work for it and pay for it and build it up out of their own damn pockets, not out of the government's pockets, which is really the taxpayers' pockets. And that pisses me off. I hear about, we're going to give $250,000 to this guy to come over here and get an education and open a business, and he's not even a goddamn American. I agree that we need to attract brighter minds into America, but we've got enough bright minds right here in America. Let's start helping them. And the best way to help them is to quit helping the foreigners. If they want to come here legally and they want to work for it like every American has to, great, good. But 9 times out of 10, you pay $250,000 for some foreigner to come here and get himself an education. Hell, he doesn't keep it here in the U.S. He goes home. Kiss my ass, that shit ain't right. Anyway, I heard nothing about bringing the government to financial fiscal responsibility. I heard a campaign speech last night. That's all I heard. I really, truly, honestly, I do not believe that Obama has America's interests at heart. I believe that the only thing that he is interested in doing is keeping the government going at its massive size and basically promoting the free ride ticket. And, hey, the free ride's over. The American people are tired of paying for that free ride. The American people are tired of having government in every aspect of their lives, especially the aspects which are unconstitutional to begin with. You know, you want to create real American jobs, stop interfering in business. That's as simple as that, you know. Tell the EPA to let the automotive industry know that, hey, look, you've got to meet these emission standards. We don't care how you get there. Instead of saying, hey, you've got to meet these emission standards and this is how you have to do it. That shit ain't right. That's too much interference by the government in business. You want to set a standard for emissions? Great, good. Let them get there any way they can. Now that would create more ingenuity, and that would cause more invention in America. That's as simple as that. I saw this shit last night. One of the votes last night that Reid was forcing on Congress is changing the patent system from first to invent to first to file the paperwork. Well, I know a lot of inventors that can't afford to do a patent search, and they can't afford to file for a patent. And I also know that the proponents of that bill are heavily vested in a few of the companies that you see all over the internet and in your mailbox. Are you an inventor? Guess what? We'll fucking file your shit for you and we'll even get it marketed. Well, that bill, I don't know if it passed or not, I didn't watch, but if that passed to where it's first to file, then all these companies have legal grounds to where, hey, we were the first to file it, we own this shit, instead of the guy who really invented it. Now, if he signs something surrendering his rights, that's one thing, but that opens the door for these companies to just scam the holy hell out of people. Well, we've got all this shit that we filed on, for these people. Now we own all these patents. Cut and dry, the government said it's okay. I don't think that shit's right. Because if you read the fine print, what I just said out my mouth is a boil down of what is not just could happen, it's very likely to happen. Because you've got the politicians backing them, and if they get the backing of the law, the way it was worded is too loose. It leaves too much of a gap. It's not tight enough. So, I mean, I can see why those politicians would have drafted the bill. Basic corruption. But nobody's going to pay attention to where their investments are and who their backers are. And that, I consider backers as being vested too. So, anyway, like I said, I saw nothing but campaign speech, and I saw typical Democratic / socialist / communist hype about, no, we're not going to be fiscally responsible, we're just going to tax the rich and make them pay more. No, it's nothing but campaign speech. I saw no real permanent jobs other than the teaching positions. I saw a lot of temporary work that might stretch out a couple of years at best. It's just Obama, you typical Democrat / socialist, you know, hey, let's spend more money. And that's really what it comes down to. He just wants to spend more money on shit that has not worked in the past. When Reagan took the old tax system away and put a cap on the most you can be taxed, regardless of how much you make, at 38.5%, he helped the economy. He didn't do it right then, but it did work later. It took a few years for it to sink in, but it did help and it did work. Somebody in the 50% tax bracket or 70% tax bracket, that shit ain't right at all. I'm sorry, if I make $1 million, $1,001 a year, and I only get to keep $300,000, there's no point in me making $1 million a year. I might as well just fucking stop at the $300,000 a year job and say, fuck it, it ain't worth it to make more. All I'm gonna get to keep is $300,000. Fine. That's a discouragement. Those taxes are a discouragement. That's a discouragement for the guy to do well. And all right, I'm going to open up another franchise next month. Well, if you've got that 70% tax on him, he ain't going to open up that another franchise and employ 20 or 30 people next month. He's going to be going, fuck, I got to stick this in savings because I had to pay all them goddamn taxes. And that's really how it works. I don't know why the Democratic mind can't grasp that. It's not like these rich people are hoarding their money. They're spending it. They're investing it in businesses. They're buying stocks in companies, which keeps those companies going, which keeps Americans employed. If they're spending that money on taxes, all they're doing is supporting the government. And no American wants that. No American wants to be working their ass off for no purpose other than to pay for the government. Alright, I'll let y'all fuckers and fuckheads later.